Last Tuesday, our country became much bluer than it was prior to that. And it really isn't about who won or who lost or, by party, but it's also about how we get involved as cattlemen in the political process and have a voice for our industry. As we look at two important aspects of what we do going forward, it's going to be important for us to engage our congressional representatives and this administration locally to educate them about our business. As we reflect upon the past, Congress and the administration oftentimes was a reflection of rural America. Today, it is a reflection of our consumers who don't understand how food is produced in this country. So as we look at the outcome of the election and the impact upon the cattle industry, in order for us to preserve our way of life, it will be important that we look for ways in which we can engage in coalitions with others who have common interest and educate those who are representing us about our lifestyle, our way of life, and the way that we produce food in this country. As we look at the outcome of this election, it's no doubt that the economy was the central issue, if you will, as to what took place. No different than some of the previous elections that we saw. In 2008, Obama has won by 349 electoral votes to 162. In 1992, the economy was the central issue, and Clinton won by beating George Bush Sr. 370 electoral votes to 168. And if we go back to 1980, Ronald Reagan won 489 electoral votes to 49. In each of those cases, the economy became a very central issue to what was on the minds of the voters at that point in time. But as we look at the bigger picture and the impact upon the beef industry and upon cattlemen, it is as important to discuss how we engage and how we get involved as it is who won or who lost. And let me share some examples of that. In the northeast district of Colorado, the Defenders of Wildlife, an activist group, spent $1.6 million to defeat Marilyn Musgrave in her run for re-election. Now, the important dimension of that is I didn't mention the candidate's name who was running against her and how much they spent. I'm talking about a special interest group that spent $1.6 million and also had people on the ground to knock on over 80,000 doors to campaign against the re-election of Marilyn Musgrave, who has been one of the allies of the beef industry. Secondly, let's talk about another example on a proposition that was being voted on in California, and that was Proposition 2, that dealt with putting regulations in place regarding animal care. In that election, on that initiative, there was over $10.5 million spent by special interest groups to pass that proposition. And of that $10.5 million, the Humane Society of the United States spent over $4.4 million on that one initiative. So we see the involvement of special interest groups and activist groups and how they're engaging effectively both with money and with human capital to help change the lifestyle and the landscape of American agriculture. Other key issues that we see are important to the beef industry as an outgrowth of this election that will be important for us to provide the appropriate education about will be biofuels, food safety and animal welfare and the implications on consumer confidence, how we look at economic issues and the impact it has on consumer demand for beef, both domestically and globally. And we know how important the global marketplace is for our ranchers as we know how important it is for global trade as it relates to the profitability of our ranchers. And then finally, I would mention that the environment and environmental regulation will be a center point of our attention as we look at this new administration and new Congress and the imposing of more regulation and more legislation and how that impacts your operations.